YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and we're going to go back into Total War Rome 2 multiplayer, and I am going to be playing as the Suebi, and this time against the Iceni. And I was incognito when I played this. That's the only way I'm ever going to get to use some of my tactics again, because I show them to you all in videos, so some of you may be, why are you changing your name online? That's so dishonorable. Or whatever it is, like, you sneaky jerk, or... I do it because occasionally I want to get on and have people not know who I am, so that I can use some of these tactics without, like, oh, airpick Suebi, he's going to bring the barbarian blob formation. Well, of course he is, because you all saw me use it, so it's the only way that I can try and be sneaky. And what's funny is I actually was going to start a match with someone earlier, and I apologize, because they were like, hey, aren't you the heir of Carthage? And I had a different name, and I was like, no, it's not me. It was me. In any case, so I'm not doing it to hide anything. Obviously, I post losses on here too, and I'm still going to use my regular Steam screen name on there, which is Patchy. I'll switch back to it, to make sure everybody can still tell who I am, because I'm not trying to hide from folks. In fact, I rather enjoy playing against viewers whenever I get on. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, so my army is pretty much the same Suebi build you saw me use in Suebi Scare Tactics. If you didn't see how to run through it, it's 4 Wolf Warriors, 4 Noble Riders. I have 2 Longbowmen, 2 Woden Spears, 1 is my General, and 2 Spear Levy. And I also have 1 Scout Rider, and 2 Berserkers. Yeah, 2 Berserkers. So, and why, if you all didn't see Suebi Scare Tactics, why are you in this idiotic blobbed formation? This is what I like to call the Barbarian Horde, or the Barbarian Blob Formation, whatever you want to call it. The Suebi, oh man, there's gotta be a name for this. I'll think of a good one here in a minute, but yeah. So, the Suebi Swarm, there we go. Yeah, the Suebi Swarm formation. So I'm doing this because the Suebi, if you have Caesar and Gaul, they have a special general ability called Ariovistus. It gives you 2 abilities. One is Pride, which increases your armor piercing damage and attack by a considerable amount. The other is Fast Charge, which goes through phases. The first phase is 15 seconds of very increased speed, meaning that you can cover vast distances and outrun enemy infantry easily. That lasts for 15 seconds. You then go into Phase 2. Phase 2, you still have the high speed, but then it kicks in a massive charge bonus. So it has to be timed properly, and the reason I'm in the blob formation is because when it gets applied by your general, it applies to any unit within a small circle of what you select, and so when I create this blob formation, it then applies to every unit in my army rather than just like 2 or 3 units if I was in a big, long, spread out formation. So this is risky because your opponent could catch you bottled up. They could hit you with skirmish fire, they could hit you with artillery would be particularly bad, very bad. Can you imagine an explosive fire pot right in the middle of all this? Oh, it'd be terrible. So you got to be careful with stuff, and that's why I deployed in the woods. It takes 60 seconds from the start of the battle until the Ariovistus general abilities can be used. They have a cooldown period at the beginning of the battle, similar to some of the general's abilities in Shogun 2. So that's why I sat back here. I'm not trying to camp or make my opponent walk across the map. I just have to make sure that if I'm going to have any advantages with Suebi, I need those general abilities, and I'm going to make sure that I get to use them and I don't just rush into battle. Some of you have also wondered, how do you move this giant blob all in one formation without it spreading out automatically from the computer? You can't group it, because if you group it and move it, it's going to screw up. But you can just, right-click and drag, or left-click and drag, select all the units, and then you can just use the arrow keys on your keyboard to move that unit forward or side to side. And that will allow you to keep them in this blobbish formation as they move forward. It functions similarly to if you ever played Rome 1 and you held the Alt key while moving your men around. So all I can see from my opponent, he sends a Briton Slinger unit out of this wood, and he has a veteran rider kind of perusing around here in the open. My opponent is probably no doubt very cautious based on why in the world I started in the trees and I'm in a big blob, so he's probably kind of considering what his move is. I don't know where all his units are, but there's a couple of likely scenarios. So if we look at the overhead map, clearly this was his deployment zone, and in the open area we don't see any units. So my opponent has probably deployed here and then also here, and he probably wants me to move in down into this vicinity so that then he can spring, and this is just a guess, flank traps on me like this and hit my units while I'm in the center. So he's kind of got some bait units out here is my guess. So I did take this light horseman into the woods and started moving it down because I really want to get a hold of these slingers for free. And basically right now I'm in a big blob, and I'm very I'm very sedentary. I'm not really moving or doing anything. Look at all the screwed up shadows going across all my men. I'm trying to get my opponent to feel more comfortable walking around, and then all of a sudden I spring all of my noble riders into action. So my opponent immediately retreats, which he should. While he's focusing on trying to keep his veteran rider alive, I'm going to come from the flank with my scout riders, and I'm going to come in like this and cut off his slinger before it can get back to cover in these trees. And also this will serve as a way for me to spring my opponent's trap. If he has it, he's not going to want to lose these slingers, and he's not going to want to lose his veteran riders. But notice that I keep my distance from the woods because I don't want anything to spring out on me right in the woods. So I keep my horses at a distance from the woods, and then I get an excellent charge right here on his Briton slingers. I'm going to absolutely destroy these guys. Germanic scout riders will be great at running down skirmishers. Very quick unit, and sure enough, here comes 3 more veteran riders. So I don't know what all my opponent has in his army still, but I can now see a chosen sword band over here too. So it looks like he had all of his cav hidden here ready to spring. So like if I came over here and engaged his infantry, his cav would then spring behind me and hit me from behind. So my opponent was also hoping for some form of deception here. And at this point, all of his horsemen are free of the woods and don't appear to have any infantry too terribly close. And heroic riders are more than a match for veteran riders. So I'm going to engage Frenzied Charge and charge my horsemen forward and take this fight. My opponent got way too hasty with his cav here, so I need to capitalize on that. Now, the thing is that my heroic riders are no longer in the middle of this blob, which means that they're not going to get the fast charge and the boosted charge, but that's fine. They're going to win this fight. If I was more concerned about winning this fight, say that my opponent had brought in heroic riders, then I would have been a lot more careful about starting that fight. My opponent springs out of the woods with his infantry and his remaining skirmishers, and I immediately send my light cav to pin him down. So basically this is just going to be a delaying movement. Keep him pinned, and then it's at this point when it's about time for me to use my special abilities. So I go ahead and engage fast charge, and then it's hard to see because it's being played in the snow, but I start issuing my movement orders. You can see my guys starting to come up here and line up, and look how fast my men move while they're in this fast charge. I mean, they are quick. You can cover a lot of ground. So they are moving very quickly. And again, I need to make sure that my charge comes once I'm into the second phase of fast charge, which actually looks like the huge charge bonus is already there. And I go ahead and pop Pride just a little bit early. It's a little early, but if I get a good charge with Pride, it's not going to take me very long to crush the enemy infantry. So that's the reason why I did it just a little bit early, but just so you know, that is a risky scenario. But yeah, look at my Wolf Warriors here on the charge. They're just going to level these chosen swordsmen. Look at how fast they were going, and like how they just plow into them. Raging speed, I engage Headhunt as well, and just look at these sword band just get cut to the ground. And even my spear levy over here got 15 kills on the charge against a chosen sword band. That shows you just how strong the charge is in these units. I keep Wodenaz spears behind my men to boost their morale. Berserkers immediately around the flank. So here come my Berserkers. They still have the fast charge ability. Oh, it just went off. So they lost it just a little short, but their charge is still good enough. And then I'm going to immediately flank charge with my my cavalry, and then run down his skirmishers with an extra unit of cav. So you can see how quickly the enemy infantry gets wrapped up in this manner. Pound for pound, the Iceni infantry was better, no question about it. But the outflanking maneuver, along with the massive charge, meant that his units just get smashed. Plus my charge was slightly downhill. My opponent definitely should have kept his distance from the Suebi blob. If you see someone in a Suebi blob formation, your best bet is to harass them and keep your infantry at a distance. Try and get them to move closer to you. And then if you do see them go into the fast charge ability, see if you have any sacrificial units, just something you can put in their way, just to delay their charge a little bit. Because if you can get that charge bonus to drop back down to normal, it's going to totally change the game against the Suebi. Now yes, they'll still have the Pride ability, but if you, by that point, if their army comes out, spreads out, and you quickly counterattack them with some delaying units, basically you can make them lose that fast charge. They'll be more spread out and not in the blob anymore, which then means that if the general uses the Pride ability, it'll be more focused in a certain area. It won't be across all the units. But never approach the blob with your infantry. Don't do it. If you have pikemen and you could get the Suebi to charge into the front of your pikemen, you'd be safe. You'd be able to stop them. It doesn't matter what their charge is like. They'll get hacked to bits on the front of pikes. But I don't think any Suebi player has any intention of charging straight into pikes. they could just as quickly use that fast charge to move around your flank. So a complete pike box would give you protection from this. Elephants, obviously, if you could keep them away from the Suebi longbow hunters, would be brutal against this. I mean, and armored elephants would be particularly difficult to kill with the Suebi. So, again, not to say that they don't have ways to counter it, but as you know, it'd be difficult. And check this out. My opponent's general was actually in a chariot unit that he'd never used. So he made a micro mistake that's actually pretty common for me to make, which is I totally forgot to use one of my units. So his general stayed hidden somewhere and didn't get used, which is also a mistake. A chariot unit would have been a great unit. Now, granted, you don't want to get your general killed right off the bat, but a chariot unit against a lot of light Suebi infantry, man, that would have been one of those excellent units that I was talking about, being able to slow my men down. Again, unfortunate to give up your general, but let's say that maybe he did things a little different. Maybe he put his general in a heroic noble unit, which is a sword unit, or maybe he put it in a heroic rider unit, and then got a chariot separate. That would be hard for the Suebi to deal with, because their infantry is pretty light. And again, once they activated fast charge, boom, punch out of the woods with the chariot and just start rapping through all their infantry. It'll die, but it'll get a bunch of kills and it'll stop their fast charge. So, that's kind of the way I think you want to fight against the Suebi scare tactics. Beware, because again, when the Suebi do come with the fast charge, they're going to be coming fast, very fast. So you need to kind of have a plan for how you might deal with that. But they are fun to use. I encourage you all to give it a shot if you haven't. If you lose, it's no big deal. It's just fun to try it. I enjoy using their armies. Great game to my opponent. It was fun to play. Obviously, he made some mistakes there, but hopefully you all kind of learned something from this as well. And we got to see the Suebi Scare Army again, which I think some of you had requested. So hope you enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing off.